What is up, space pirates? This is your Admiral, the boundlessly boisterous Dr. Disaster, and you would think that the most insufferable people on the planet would be the woke-skulled, purple-haired HR lady trolls who have infested the video game spaces for the sole purpose, it seems, of pissing off actual gamers. But that's incorrect. There is someone worse than that. Someone higher on the jackass totem pole.
I kid you not, I have seen some shit.
In the world of gaming, the game journalists are worse than the actual activists that have woke-scolded their way into power, partially because these mouthpieces are the reason that gaming has become so inundated with politically correct crap in the first place, but partially because game journalists are so shameless with their words. They will do, and especially say, anything to argue against basic truths which are inconvenient for them. For example, these idiots refuse to acknowledge that the reason Dragon Age the Veilguard failed was because it had scenes like this that turned normal people away from it like it was the freaking plague.
I think your fingers are just perfect.
Yeah. So... are you trying to have sex with me?
Jason Schreier of Bloomberg, who just wrote this article here, he wrote a postmortem for Dragon Age the Veilguard where he blames executive decisions at the top of the company, and while I won't disagree completely that the powers that be at BioWare and EA contributed to the absolute flop that was Dragon Age, refusing to acknowledge that the presence of gender ideology in the game was a major red flag for most people is a massive sign that they, in the game journalist spaces, are purposely ignoring reality.
In case you didn't know, this is what stupid looks like.
Keep in mind that Jason Schreier is the same guy who smugly tweeted this here right after Dragon Age released and hit the top of the Steam charts. He said, "Go woke, go broke, top of the charts." He acted like it was a major accomplishment for Dragon Age to be the top seller on Steam on the day of its release, and sales fell off so quickly right afterwards that he became embarrassed and he deleted this tweet. And now this same jackass who failed to see this coming and who got freaking owned by gamers, he wants to pretend like he has some inside information, some real insight to explain why the game flopped. This is a perfect encapsulation of everything wrong with the industry. Every time these bozos speak, they make you want to say,
"Quiet, child. The adults are talking."
Alright, me hearties, make sure that you hit the like button on this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and don't forget to follow me over on Rumble, where I've started uploading some content as well. Also, please consider supporting the channel by becoming a member. I'm working on a space pirate cartoon which channel members will get first access to. We can't just complain about the state of our culture, we have to create alternatives. So, if you want to support that sort of thing, consider a channel membership for as little as $5 per month. Anyhow, let's take a look at this so-called post-mortem of Dragon Age the Veilguard from a clueless, smug schmuck who got rocked by gamers when this game released. Now, the article itself is behind a paywall, so we aren't going to be able to read it directly, but they talk about it here in this article from Insider Gaming, where the headline tells us exactly how they're trying to spin this flop from Dragon Age. Report says Dragon Age the Veilguard struggles stemmed from management decisions. If by management decisions they mean that the upper management permitted the idiots working on the Veilguard to insert their weird gender ideology into the game, where they had to include all kinds of narcissistic and fetishistic content into the story, rubbing our noses in it, if we are condemning the powers that be for permitting this, then sure, I will agree that managerial decisions were a big problem, but of course that is not what they're talking about. These are activists first, who will never concede that their activism is not popular. They will never concede that it doesn't sell well, so they have to focus on other problems. Anyhow, this article says here, Dragon Age the Veilguard was a disappointment in the eyes of longtime fans of the series and the higher-ups at EA themselves. The game struggled to stand out to players while failing to meet internal expectations after its October release. Now, in a new report published on Wednesday, there's more insight into what might be to blame for the lackluster release of Dragon Age the Veilguard. Bloomberg's Jason Schreier reports that many of the game's problems seem to stem from executive decisions that saw that scope of the game change multiple times. The game originally began as a standard BioWare single-player title before EA executives forced a pivot to it becoming a multiplayer live service game. When that decision was made, creative director Mike Laidlaw, who disagreed with the decision, resigned from the studio. Matt Goldman took over for Laidlaw and began to work on the new online multiplayer version of the next Dragon Age title. And you know, this sort of thing, bouncing around what the game is fundamentally supposed to be, that can definitely throw off the tone of the game, but this does not explain the lackluster release, as they say that it does in this article. What they're describing is why the game itself is dog shit. But why didn't people take a chance on the game since it was a Dragon Age title and it was heavily advertised? Why didn't they buy it and find out for themselves? Let's read a bit more and then we will talk about that. The article continues, after multiple years of working on the multiplayer version of the game, it was then decided to move it back to being a single-player title. When the switch back happened, Schreier says it was done without any sort of reset on development. Instead, development was to continue while changing the game's fundamental structure and recasting the entire story. When it returned to single player, the team at BioWare was given a year and a half to finish, which forced rushed decisions. This strict deadline became a recurring problem. The report reads, the development team would make decisions believing they had less than a year to release the game, which severely limited the stories they could tell and the world they could build. Once again, this helps explain why the gameplay and the story and all that was dog shit, but I will ask again, why didn't people buy this game? Need I remind these turds that these same people who are telling us now that the game is a mess, these same people gave Dragon Age the Veilguard an 82 out of 100. They told us the game was solid, and obviously the advertising tried to paint the game in the best light possible. Gamers were bombarded with the message that Dragon Age was a solid game, and yet we didn't budge. It sold like crap. And now this Jason Schreier doofus is trying to explain why it is that he and his colleagues should have been calling the game a mess, but what he is not doing is explaining where the disconnect stems from between gamers and this game. And I will circle back around to what I have already said, it is the gender ideology nonsense. BioWare stepped right into this stuff and they were rejected because, let's face it, oftentimes, when a game like Dragon Age the Veilguard comes out, the famous IP is enough to help it become at least a reasonably sized hit. But not this time. People are over it, and rather than accept this fact, rather than accept that their presence in the gaming spaces is resented by a massive chunk of the gaming community, these journalists are clinging to any excuse they can come up with. In this case, Schreier is focusing on background production issues, when we all know that if the game had been marketed with cool characters that we actually liked, and not all this weird progressive stuff, it still would have sold well despite being an absolute turd of a game. People may have hated it after they bought it, but they would have bought it. But I'm gonna leave it there. Drop your contempt for these dishonest game journalist dorks into the comment section below, and we will talk there. Thanks for watching, me hearties. If you haven't already, your Admiral is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty of booty.